All right, so this is Unit 1, Lesson 3. You should have notes in front of you here. We're going to talk about the ethics of healthcare. Your notes should look something like, let's see, it's coming. This, right? Is it frozen? Oh, okay. Should look something like this. You should have these in front of you. If you lose this, need another copy, print it out from the website. Okay? So, yeah, it's, I'll show you in a second. So here's Unit 1, Lesson 3. This is what we're talking about here. And this needs to be refreshed. The PowerPoint that I'm going to be working through is posted on the website here. So you can look this up if you want. That's where all the filled in parts of the blanks are. But this is your student blanks assignment. So again, fill in the blanks, put your name on it, keep that in. If you turn that in to me, I'll give you, well, this one has actually assignment on it, so you will need to submit this by the end of the week here. But here's where you go if you need to print out another one. Okay, so I'm giving you one. If you lose it or wreck it, need to print it out, go to mrmathwell.com, your Health Science 20. And here is the link to the PowerPoint that we're going to talk about right here today. Okay? So, let's go ahead and read the first part here. So, ethics of healthcare. Here we go. Look at that stethoscope. That is something else. That's a really long stethoscope. You can do that little heartbeat with a heart there. Look at that. Isn't that great? Wonderful. All right. All right. So understanding where healthcare is and where it's going must be guided by ethics. Okay. So again, Health Science 20. We've talked about the history of healthcare. We're talking about now the ethics of healthcare. So where healthcare has come from, how it's been viewed, and where we're moving forward with healthcare is guided by ethics. All right, so we have some case studies we're going to work through. Case 1, you'll see here, is entitled Quality of Life. So let's read through this together. It says this: a 76-year-old man, we'll call him Mr. Grouch, with advanced dementia. Who knows what dementia is? Yeah? Yes, memory problems. Yeah, it's not just short-term memory; it's long-term memory. It's yeah. You want to also?
Voices in their heads that aren't actually there.
Okay. Yeah, voices. That could be other. Yeah, that could be other things, kind of convoluting the situation. But yeah, it's basically a loss of touch with reality and memory is a big thing. Yeah, so a lot of older people get that. It's a mental sort of breakdown of memory and function. So Mr. Grouch has advanced dementia. He requires 24-hour nursing care he has now stopped eating and has developed a cough. The quality of his life has markedly diminished, so noticeably and drastically diminished, in the past few years. He has largely been bedridden and incontinence. Do you know what bedridden means?
You can only
Confined to a bed.
yeah.
So he's bedridden. Do you know what incontinent means?
Control
Unable to control restroom stuff. Yes, very good. That's a very good way of putting that. Unable to control restroom stuff. So yes, bladder and bowels, not able to control that. So bedridden, incontinent. Okay, while not evidently in physical pain, he is totally confused and often agitated. Who knows what agitated means? Bothered. Anything else? Go ahead, just shout it out. Annoyed. Okay, you're just agitated. Everything kind of like bugs you. Too hot in here. Get this thing away from me, you know? Okay, agitated, yeah. And seems fearful of his surroundings. All right, so here's the question. Again, I want you to think about this. We're going to talk about some guiding ethics, but this is the first question. Should he be artificially fed? Why or why not? Now, reserve your answers for now. We're just going to think about this. So we have a 76-year-old man, advanced dementia, bedridden, incontinent, agitated, confused. Should he be artificially fed? Okay, why or why not? All right, let's move on and see what. Let's fill in some blanks and talk about ethics. Okay, so ethics is about, and I'll try and highlight where your blanks are in your paper there. Ethics is about right and wrong. Okay? It's about right and wrong. And the reasons that we give for our choices and our actions. This is clearly central to health science, since doing the right thing for patients, that is, minimizing suffering, okay, that's considered the right thing to do. Hippocratic oath, cause no harm, so we don't want to cause suffering, we want to minimize that if we can. And treating illness contains a large moral component. What is a moral component? What does moral mean?
Ethic.
Ethics, yeah.
Morality.
So morality is your judgment on right and wrong, okay? All right. So ethics should help clarify. Who knows what clarify means?
Make something clear.
Yeah, to make something clear, clarify, and to present alternatives when you are faced with a difficult decision within the health science field. Okay? So we know what ethics are and how ethics can guide and to clarify alternatives. Okay? So there obviously there's maybe something you can do, something you might not want to do. Which direction do we go? And in that case study that we just read, there would be a decision to be made. So what kind of guiding principles should we consider when we move forward ethically? Okay. So this next section is how. Okay, when it comes to ethical problems, and I think, do you have this? Yeah, you have this in the sentence in your paragraph. When it comes to ethical problems and dilemmas, now what is a dilemma? That's one of your blanks there. What's a dilemma? Anyone know?
It seems it's wrong both sides. Both choices are wrong.
Both choices are wrong? Well, not necessarily wrong. A tough situation? Okay. Oftentimes this is what we think of. A die, what does the prefix die mean? Two. Yeah. And a lemma is actually an old math term. It's like a proposition. So there's two propositions. Okay? So a dilemma, Latin, means two propositions. So there's two ways it could go. One might be right, one might be wrong. They both might be right, they both might be wrong. But a dilemma is like, okay, I have two ways I could go here. I need to decide. Okay. So you should first of all be able to recognize, analyze them. Oh, I missed something. You should be able to recognize them and be able to analyze them carefully. So to recognize and to analyze, keeping in mind the three core ethical principles. Core means the base, rock bottom, most important part. Central part really is what core is, central part. Okay, so here are the three core ethical principles. What does the patient want? The fancy word for that is autonomy. Okay? So when we're thinking about ethical decisions, what the patient wants, or what you, let's say it's you, what you want to have happen to your own body or for your own care should be something that's a very important part of the decision making, okay? Autonomy. Now, obviously, there would be some cases where the person in question maybe couldn't make good decisions, which might be a part of our first case study there, right? Does Mr. Grouch, do we know what he wants? Does he know what he wants? That's something we have to consider. Okay, number two, what can be done for the patient and what are the harms and benefits? Okay, so there's two fancy words for that. Beneficence, okay, so that is what is beneficial, and maleficence, okay, that is what is detrimental or what is bad for you, okay? So what is beneficial, and I don't know if maleficial is a word, but probably is. Maleficence?
Malevolent.
Yeah. Malevolent, yeah. Benevolent and malevolent, those are very similar words. So what is beneficial and what is not? Good. Number three, are the patient's requests fair and able to be satisfied? That is justice. Okay, are they fair and able to be satisfied? Okay, I'm sick, so I want you to fly me to Dubai, where you're going to rent me a Lamborghini so I can drive around and get the fresh air I need. Okay, is that let's see. Should the government pay for that under my health care? Okay, yes, okay, yeah. So if that's going to happen to me, so you're going to be the one to pay for that, right? You're okay with that, right? Oh, what, you don't have any money? Oh, you don't have any money, eh? Oh, okay. We have to be careful what we declare should be paid for under government health care when...
So when I grow old, it's like the same thing happens to me though.
So when you grow old, what?
When I grow old.
What? You should be flown to Dubai to drive around in a Lamborghini so you get the fresh air you need to be healthy? Okay, but it's not okay for me to do that now because you have to pay for it. But it's going to be okay for you to have that done because someone else will pay for it?
No, if we should start it, yeah, it's okay.
Oh, it's okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that when I get there.
So you would agree to pay for that, but you have no money, so it doesn't matter to you, right? Part of the problem with our world today, actually. Yeah. Yeah. Someone else should do this for me.
Borrow from a bank and die.
Borrow from a bank and then die. All right, let's keep going. We're running into some problems here already. Okay. Now, I believe this guy is Philip C. Hébert. Hébert. This guy seems to be French. You see the little, now I'm not a linguist, but you see the little notation there over the E? That makes the E say A. A. So Hébert. Hébert. So this guy's probably French. Okay? Don't know. I haven't met him, so I don't know. But a 7-step procedure for resolving ethical dilemmas has been proposed by Philip C. Hébert. This is not a moral set of rules. Hey, listening back there? This is not a moral set of rules, but is good enough for our purposes. Okay, glad that's in quotes there. So it's not a complete moral set of rules, but this is a good structure for us to make ethical decisions, okay? And again, a lot of ethics might seem to be very subjective versus objective. So subjective means kind of your preference, right? Objective means, well, we're adhering to the standard. There is a standard that we all need to adhere to. So this just, I think, objectifies a little bit the decision making. It's kind of like, well, no, I don't want to feed Mr. Grouch. Yeah, he doesn't want to. I don't want to. Or, should there be some sort of maybe a little bit more objective standard that we should probably, refer to? All right. So number 1, recognize that a case raises an important ethical problem. So first of all, it's important for us to recognize that there may be an ethical issue here. Okay? So ethical problems arise when there is a conflict of values. So I am going to highlight some words that aren't necessarily words that you're going to fill in your blanks, but they are important. So ethical problems arise when there is a conflict of values. And when there are different ways of proceeding, so different ways of proceeding. So conflict of values, different ways you can proceed. It's important to be as knowledgeable as possible about the case. All right. So we have to realize that there may be a conflict of values in our decision making. What are the different ways? Let's inform ourselves about what the dilemma might be or what the options might be. Number 2, identify the problem. Identify the problem that needs to be solved. So we realize there is an ethical problem or an ethical issue. We need to identify clearly what that issue is. Once the problem is precisely identified, you will be better able to decide what resources you need to handle the problem. Okay? So identifying is really precisely identified, okay, or clarified. Okay, so realize there is an ethical issue. Identify what the problem is or the ethical issue is. Number 3, determine reasonable alternative courses of action. So let's identify what reasonable alternatives there are, okay? If I need fresh air, opening a window might be a good idea as opposed to flying me to Dubai to ride around in my Lamborghini, okay? Oh, you need fresh air? So what are reasonable, and let's determine those. So these options don't need to be exhaustive. That means you don't have to consider every possible option under the sun. Just focus on the top reasonable ones. But they should be clearly distinct. So it's not like open this window or open that window or open that window or open this window or open that door. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you want fresh air, just open a window. Okay, that's one thing you could do. Could you hook up to like a oxygen mask maybe? I don't know, maybe another one. Is that reasonable? It's alternative anyways. Okay. So everybody, any questions about first three there?
No.
All right. So what's next? Number 4 says consider. So consider. Okay, we've identified alternatives. Now we need to consider each option in relation to the 3 fundamental ethical principles. Okay, so remember that's autonomy, what's beneficial, and is it judicial? Is there a component of justice there? None of these principles is always paramount. Oh, what does paramount mean? That's a fancy word. What does paramount mean? Kind of like the most important, right? Think of a mountain, paramount. Oh, Paramount Pictures, you know that one with the mountain? Paramount, okay. So not one of these principles is always paramount. So not one of the 3 principles is always the most important. But in certain situations, one may trump another. And that's another figure of speech there, to trump another. In a lot of card games and things like that, a trump card is one that rises above and is kind of more dominant over all of the other cards. So when you say, well, this decision trumps that one, that means that it takes precedence over, okay? All right, number 5, decide on a resolution. Okay, so that's basically just a conclusion or an action plan. What do you resolve to do? Okay, what do you resolve to do? I resolve to do this. I am going to go this way. So decide on a resolution to the problem. How can you solve the problem? Your conclusion may be disputed, so you should be able to say why you think it's the best one. So decide on a resolution based on some good, solid reasoning. All right, number 6, consider your position critically. Consider your position critically. So how do we do that? Well, are there circumstances under which you would advocate a different course of action? So what circumstances are causing you to choose this position? Could your decision be formulated into a general principle? So does this happen all the time, or is it just circumstantial? Is it just under certain circumstances? So circumstances or general principle. Okay, that's a good thing to identify. Because if you say this is always wrong, or this is not the best course of action in these types of situations, right? B, do I have any blanks here? No. Consider your emotions, your conscience, and the opinions of others. So how do we critically analyze our position and critically defend our position? Think about your own emotions in this decision, because sometimes decisions are very emotional. If Mr. Grouch is your grandpa, you may have a different position than if Mr. Grouch is, if you're a nurse and that's your patient you've never met before. Could possibly be. That could affect your position. Your conscience, okay? Now this is, I think this is underrepresented in ethical decisions, but what do you believe truly in your heart to be the right thing to do? Your conscience, your emotions, your opinion, these are all obviously subjective things, but ethics is not always 100% objective. There's subjective aspects as well. Now, should we try to be objective as possible to make the right decision? I think that's a good idea, but we have to consider that because people are going to say, all right, if you take a position on something, they're going to say, oh, it's just because it's your grandpa, just because Mr. Grouch is your grandpa that you say we should force feed him because you don't, whatever. You say, well, yes, that is part of my decision making. However, I still think that ethically we have a responsibility to keep this person alive, let's say. But to ignore that there are subjective aspects of your decision making, you just need to be ready to be able to defend your position, okay? All right, keep going. C, would you make the same choice if your decision were made public? Ooh, that's another good thing to think about. What if everyone knew that this was your position and your decision on this? Would you make the same choice? So is this just something that you're kind of just trying to sneak by? Is this a decision that, well, I'm kind of doing this maybe a little selfishly, or maybe my personal benefit out of all this is maybe looming a little bit too large in this situation. So if too many people knew about this, I might make a different decision. That's something too important to consider as well. So number 7, I don't know why this isn't highlighted, sorry. But number 7, this is the 7th point. Do the right thing, okay? So do the right thing. So after considering all of this, do the right thing. So you still need to try to follow as best you can the most ethical, correct thing in your mind to do. Okay, so do the right thing. Now, that could be just part of, I don't know, that doesn't even have to be step 7, but it is. It's part of step 7. So considering all of these other steps, do the right thing. So again, once again, just look at these real quick here. Recognize you have an ethical problem. Identify what the problem is. Determine reasonable alternative courses of action. So what are all the possible actions within reason? Consider each carefully. And under this point, number 4, consider your 3 fundamental principles of autonomy, beneficence, and justice. And decide on a resolution. Consider your position critically. And follow through and do the right thing that you think you ought to do there. Okay? So again, I think these are excellent steps to help us sort of remove ourselves from the situation sometimes, right? If you have to make an ethical decision, it's really good to be able to rely on something that has some structure and that you can work through your problems. Because how many of you know that you've probably made choices, I have too, in my life, where it's just like kind of off the cuff, you make a choice, but you don't really think about it. And then you go back and you say, well, I maybe shouldn't have done that because I was only thinking of myself, or I didn't consider this perspective, or it was, I just didn't take the time. So to work through these 7 steps might help. All right. Okay, so before we move on to this next one, let's go back because, let's see now, where are we at? So in your handout here, notice on the 2nd page, we have, I'm just waiting for it to pop up. Okay, so here are your handouts here. On the 2nd page, we have the case, the problem, the alternatives, key considerations. All right, so let's try and work through this case 1 on your paper here. Let's try and work through this together, okay? So what is the case? So we're going to talk about this. You're going to jot down some things. I'll help you with the first one. The case here. Okay, so what is the case? Okay, so let's clearly state the case. What would the case be for case study number 1? What? We have a man that seems to be, okay, so we have a man that's an older man, right? He's older. We have dementia involved, right? We have dementia. That's huge. That's a big part of this. And I think we can assume, because the question is, should we force feed or artificially feed, I guess? So there is some, there's self-care issues, let's say self-care issues here, because that's, I think, inherent in the situation. Okay, older, dementia, self-care issues. Okay, so obviously he's not feeding himself if the question is, should he be artificially fed? Did I miss that, or did the case study say that he's not eating?
Yeah,
said he's not
It said he's not eating.
It did say? Okay, maybe I just forgot about that. Where does it say that?
He's not eating and he developed a cough. It's like a sentence.
Oh, yeah. He has now stopped eating and has developed a cough. Thank you. I forgot that line. So self-care issues, obviously not eating. So we'll say not eating and unhealthy, right? So the cough, he's unhealthy. So these are some things, and I don't mind if you just list point form or just a list of things like that. Okay, so the problem now, what is the problem? He is, not eating and needs to be fed. Okay, so not eating, sick. We need to help him through this. We need to help him be healthy. Okay, the problem, he's not eating, he's sick. And he may need some help, right? May need help in this, obviously. And because of his dementia, he's not able to make these decisions on his own, and maybe even to realize that he is, deteriorating. Okay, he might not even realize he's deteriorating. Okay, so what are the alternatives? So what are our options here?
Feed or not feed.
Yeah, I guess basically that's to put it very simply, to feed, feed, And I'm going to say feed and medicate, okay, because of the cough, perhaps, or not to. Okay, feed and medicate or not to. So those are the alternatives. Do we consider that this person has made a choice? So in his autonomy, which is a core ethical principle, in his autonomy, he has chosen to stop eating, and apparently not doing anything about the cough. Now, we think, looking at it, those are related, right? So if you're not eating, not keeping yourself healthy, you may get sick. So the autonomy is there. What's beneficial for the patient and what is not beneficial for the patient? Well, we can see that eating is going to be the best thing probably for this person to get healthy, okay? So we need to consider all of that stuff. So what are those considerations? Let's identify those. One, autonomy, I guess, right? Autonomy. This is the patient's decision. Okay. And I guess the key considerations, autonomy, and what does the patient want? Okay. The second one is, I'm just going to say, what's beneficial. Okay. Beneficial. Okay. What will help this patient? What will help? Really, you have to consider the other, what will help or hinder, but we'll just say what will help, the beneficial part. And then the justice part. Now, if we look back to the justice part, are the patient's requests fair and able to be satisfied? Okay, so the justice. Sorry, it's tough to read some of my handwriting, I apologize. That says justice. So what is fair and reasonable? Okay. All right, now let's hear from you. What do you think the resolution, what would you say would be an ethical resolution to this? What do you think should be done? So the question was, do we artificially feed Mr. Grouch? Considering everything that we've talked about here so far, what do you guys think?
Well, what's his stance on it? It doesn't say whether or not he wants to be artificially fed.
It does say that he's easily aggravated, so it might almost seem like he might not want to.
Yeah. If he stopped eating, we can assume that he doesn't want to eat.
And
Okay.
he would be against being artificial.
Well, there's a lot of things that aren't mentioned in this, like has he been presented with the options for artificial feeding?
How long?
Let's assume, okay, everyone listening? These are good questions. Let's assume that Mr. Grouch is not able to understand what artificially fed is. So it's really difficult for us to know what he wants, okay? We don't know what he wants about being artificially fed. We're not sure if he can make that decision.
So he is unconscious.
No, not unconscious. No, he's conscious. Unconscious means like passed out, like in a coma or sleeping, or like you're not able to make, but not able to make maybe the rational decisions. The thinking process is affected because of the dementia. So because of his mental state, to rationally think through the problem and come up to a reasonable. That's tough because he's not able to think through that properly. Okay. What other thoughts? Okay, John, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think we should also consider, or we should ask the people around him what's.
Okay, so you should ask people around him. Okay, so his family members. Okay. All right. That's okay. That's good. Now, how much weight should we put on the family members' requests?
Not a lot because they would be biased.
Okay, not a lot because they might be
Not
biased.
like none, but consider that they would be biased.
Okay, consider they may be biased. Okay. Arguably, they would care more about Mr. Grouch, the immediate family, than. But you don't know if they really kind of maybe want him to pass along so they can inherit the estate or something. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, when you, I'm just saying, so,
I mean, like,
okay, relax. This is something we need to consider, right?
some
So,
less serious cases where it's not like life and death, like completely stop eating. I think sometimes, especially like with like people, some people may want different things.
okay, so generally, who thinks, okay, by a show of hands here, who thinks that that the healthcare providers here should artificially feed Mr. Grouch? Who votes that should be the resolution? Put up your hand nice and high, and you just need to kind of count.
It's probably just hangry. I feel like we don't have enough information. 'Cause, like, we don't know almost at all.
Okay, who thinks we should not artificially feed Mr. Grouch? Based on the information that we have and that we've talked about. Okay. Some of you didn't vote. A lot of you didn't vote. Does that mean you have no idea?
I just want to say something. I feel like medication, because like you said he was sick. So medication, I feel like he should be medicated. Because like he might just not be eating because he's sick, like you said. So if they medicate him and he gets better from that sickness,
Okay.
will he start eating
What's the point of
again?
medication?
Like,
Okay, so
You need to eat before you can use medication.
certain medications you don't have to.
Okay.
That's most of them though.
So the question is, okay, I know there's lots of options. Like let's get medicine first to take care of his cough. So maybe he'll want to eat. Okay, that could take a long time. That
It's true.
going without food probably is a little bit more serious than going without a med for a cough, maybe. But maybe you want to do both at the same time. Okay, so eating. Now most of you said we should be artificially fed. So let's write that down. Now you will be able to do your own. Okay, but this is the class one we're trying to work through together. So I really appreciate the fact that you guys are thinking critically about this. And yes, there's always lots of things that you don't know about given the brief synopsis of the situation. But just given what and the reasonable assumptions that we can make, I think, let's try and make some resolutions. So we will feed artificially. Okay. Now, this is where, let me spell this artificially, okay? This is where critical considerations, so this is where you would note all of the critical considerations, right? So again, as we talked about, let's go back, where were we? The 7 ethical stages, come on now, computer. Okay, so the considerations, those core 3, yeah. And, okay. So alternative courses of action, next page here. Oh my goodness. Oh, I think I switched the pages around here accidentally. Okay, computer, behave. So think critically. So circumstances, is this circumstantial? Are there emotions, conscience, or opinion involved? Would you do this to the right, if this is a public decision? So these kind of things. Okay, so let's take a moment to jot down some of those things. Okay, so a couple things we've got under critical considerations. Obviously, dementia's affecting his decision making, and the obvious, without food, he's going to starve to death. Okay, some other thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
It said that he's easily aggravated, so he might not understand that they're trying to help him, so he might kind of fight.
Okay, so there may be some resistance because of his agitation. Yeah, now that, again, I might put that down in the action required to just be aware of that as you
You also need to
as you
consider
apply
that
this
be
artificial,
prepared.
yep, to be prepared.
Be prepared that he might resist, so you have to have ways to kind of explain it to him.
Okay, so are we saying, another critical consideration might be, and again, I think I am gonna put this down along with down here, okay? And we'll finish that in a second. Should we make some note that obviously his autonomy here in this decision, his autonomy has been overridden by other factors, okay? So what are we saying to that? The critical consideration here is that we have chosen that his health, life and death health, is more important than his autonomy? Is that kind of what we're saying?
I wouldn't say necessarily his autonomy. I would also I would take in the context that his autonomy may not exactly have been overridden, but more, well, overridden, but.
Well, he chose not to,
Yeah,
he's been choosing not to
I
eat.
think
He's
if
decided not to
just
eat.
Kept in mind that his autonomy was overwritten on the basis that his autonomy may not have been made in a clear state of mind. I think that should be.
Yep. Yeah, then we said that, dimensions affecting his decision making.
Yeah.
But so we're saying that life and death situation, okay? And I think it's fair for us to say that is superseding, let's say, maybe not overriding. So overriding is complete dominance, and this is like overriding. Maybe superseding means that it's being put above the autonomy. Okay, so life death situation plan. Okay, plan. It supersedes. Hope you guys are okay with that word. Supersedes. It is placed above in priority. Supersedes his autonomy, and that is not something that we can take lightly, for sure. Okay. Yeah. One more thought on that.
We just have to be aware that his body might not be able to take in the food.
Okay, all right, so that's part of the action required, I think, as well. I think we're getting into the action required there as well. So let's consider that in a minute. Action required, so we're gonna put a feeding tube. Okay, it's gonna be a feeding tube. It was mentioned earlier that the dementia and the fear and the agitation, he may not want to keep that feeding tube in. He may really against that. So the dementia and the fear, we would have to be aware that he may have some problems with this. Yep.
And the very
Okay.
practical one. The
Let's say
cost.
may present, I don't know if this sounds right, but application issues, maybe? Oops, issues. Is there another way to put that? May present or may hinder application. Okay. And then again, the resistance to the plan, because obviously this is not something that he has decided to do. So resistance to the plan may require some convincing or family input, right?
What if he's broke though? Who's gonna pay for it?
The government.
Well, okay, there's many different situations around the world where cost might be an issue. Let's say that cost is not an issue right now, that this is something that is either going to be covered by insurance or by a governmental plan. Critical considerations, if you put that under a critical consideration, that wouldn't be wrong, okay? Right, that would be okay to put as long as you didn't miss some of these important ones. But that might be a consideration as well. You know, is he financially able to carry out the procedure, the plan? So let me finish this. Resistance to a plan. What was I going to write there? Oh, I can't remember what I was going to write, but that there may be some, family. Family support here. There may be some family support that would be required, maybe to help convince him that this is an okay thing, or
If he's forgetting, how is he going to
yeah, okay. All right, so I think we've covered everything there. That's good. This is a good example. Anything else that you think that we might be missing? Any other consideration we might be missing? Yeah.
What I said before.
Oh yeah, right. We gotta get to yours as well. Yeah. Okay.
Under action required,
Yeah.
there's resistance, but don't you think if there were resistance, they shouldn't do it?
Well, okay. So what kind of? Okay, good question. What kind of resistance should we consider as
Stop.
superseding our plan? Right? If he says, "I don't want that tube," but you convince him to do it anyways, or if he's ripping it out and is there a right? I mean, do we just take necessary action to make sure that the feeding tube is in? Like even including like restraints or like belt them down or something? That's a good question. I'm saying it's a good question. Like, is there a point where your decision here to keep him alive, to feed him artificially, is there a point where that is now interrupted because a certain level of resistance is made? It's a good question, right? It's a good question. Okay, now let's get back to one more here. Just add yours. What did you say again? Yours was?
That his body might
Okay, so the action required, we would have to be careful
For choice.
to monitor body's response maybe to the food and medication, if we give medication as well. Yep. Okay. Very, very good. This is very good. Anything further that we might be missing here? Yep.
Yeah, it also says that.
Okay, so your job is to read this case over here carefully, and in your handouts, do the same thing that we just did with Mr. Grouch there. So fill in. So in your paper there, a 22-year-old woman. That's this one right here. So I want you to do this page for tomorrow. Okay. So read through this and do this out for tomorrow.
Before tomorrow's class.
Yep. That's your assignment for tonight, and then we'll talk about it tomorrow. So this page right here that you see, this page in your notes.